I will tell you, you're not going to have a war with me, and you're not going to have a third world war with me. That I can tell you.
We will keep America out of foolish, stupid, ridiculous foreign wars.
We had these endless wars that go on for 21, 22 years, spending billions and billions of dollars.
We're getting out of the endless wars.
Great nations do not want to fight endless wars.
They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars.
Oh, there's some. Oh,
Are y'all good? Everybody's good? Everybody over here is good?
yeah.
Good. I saw that one come in. You guys all right? Everybody okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
We are closed. Go away.
I have a reservation.
Private club, go away.
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
The threat comes from Iraq. It arises directly from the Iraqi regime's own actions, its history of aggression, and its drive toward an arsenal of terror.
Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. This terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon.
Saddam Hussein is a homicidal dictator who is addicted to weapons of mass destruction.
Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people.
There can be no peace if our security depends on the will and whims of a ruthless and aggressive dictator.
And they are indeed sick and sinister.
The Iraqi regime was required to destroy its weapons of mass destruction, to cease all development of such weapons, and to stop all support for terrorist groups. The Iraqi regime has violated all of those obligations.
Following our obliteration of Iran's nuclear program, we warned Iran not to make any attempt to rebuild at a different location, but they ignored those warnings and refused to cease their pursuit of nuclear weapons.
The evidence indicates that Iraq is reconstituting its nuclear weapons program.
We warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons.
Satellite photographs reveal that Iraq is rebuilding facilities at sites that have been part of its nuclear program in the past.
We sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil.
The entire world has witnessed Iraq's 11-year history of defiance, deception, and bad faith.
For decades and decades, they've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore.
Some believe we can address this danger by simply resuming the old approach to inspections and applying diplomatic and economic pressure. Yet this is precisely what the world has tried to do since 1991.
For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries.
Iraq possesses ballistic missiles with a likely range of hundreds of miles, far enough to strike Saudi Arabia, Israel, Turkey, and other nations.
The regime's conventional ballistic missile program was growing rapidly and dramatically, and this posed a very clear, colossal threat to America and our forces stationed overseas.
In the last year alone, the Iraqi military has fired upon American and British pilots more than 750 times.
The regime already had missiles capable of hitting Europe and our bases, both local and overseas, and would soon have had missiles capable of reaching our beautiful America.
Regime change in Iraq is the only certain means of removing a great danger to our nation. The dictator of Iraq is a student of Stalin, using murder as a tool of terror and control.
The regime has armed, trained, and funded terrorist militias that have soaked the earth with blood and guts.
Saddam Hussein is harboring terrorists and the instruments of terror.
We're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon.
In addition to declaring and destroying all of its weapons of mass destruction, Iraq must end its support for terrorism.
We're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders.
It has given shelter and support to terrorism and practices terror against its own people.
Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested.
We've experienced the horror of September the 11th.
And it was Iran's proxy, Hamas, that launched the monstrous October 7th attacks on Israel.
We have seen that those who hate America are willing to crash airplanes into buildings full of innocent people.
Slaughtering more than 1,000 innocent people, including 46 Americans, while taking 12 of our citizens hostage. It was brutal, something like the world has never seen before.
The attacks of September the 11th showed our country that vast oceans no longer protect us from danger. Before that tragic date, we had only hints of al-Qaeda's plans and designs. Today in Iraq, we see a threat whose outlines are far more clearly defined and whose consequences could be far more deadly.
An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also to the American people.
The Iraqi dictator must not be permitted to threaten America and the world with horrible poisons and diseases and gases and atomic weapons.
I'll say it again, they can never have a nuclear weapon.
If we know Saddam Hussein has dangerous weapons today, and we do, does it make any sense for the world to wait to confront him as he grows even stronger and develops even more dangerous weapons?
This was our last best chance to strike, what we're doing right now, and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime.
Now as before, we will secure our nation, protect our freedom, and help others to find freedom of their own.
To the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand.
The lives of Iraqi citizens would improve dramatically if Saddam Hussein were no longer in power.
When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations.
America is a friend to the people of Iraq.
America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force.
America believes that all people are entitled to hope and human rights. People everywhere prefer freedom to slavery, prosperity to squalor, self-government to the rule of terror and torture.
Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach.
Our demands are directed only at the regime that enslaves them. When these demands are met, the first and greatest benefit will come to Iraqi men, women, and children.
This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass.
مثلی لایوای او مثل یزید لبیک یا شهید لبیک یا شهید وقت نابودی دشمن رسید لبیک یا شهید لبیک یا شهید ملت به خروش آمده پرچم به دوش آمده ملت به خروش آمده پرچم به دوش آمده
لبیک یا خامنه ای خون ما به جوش آمده لبیک یا خامنه ای خون ما به جوش آمده آرام نمیگیری آرام نمیگیری ما جز برای پرچم ایران نمیمیریم کوتاه نمیایی کوتاه نمیایی با قاتل سید علی ما راه نمیایی بچرخ تا بچرخیم که این نبرد آخره بچرخ تا بچرخیم صدا صدای حیدره بچرخ تا بچرخیم یا به نگو یک سره بچرخ تا بچرخیم
Yeah. You crossed the ocean just to find your grave. Sacrifice your own boys for a lie. Listen. Yeah. Yeah. Make America great again. Yo, Tails, this shit crazy. Yeah, make America great again now. You will see what happens, yeah. Watch this. Sacred defense, we protecting the soil. While you sacrifice soldiers to pay for your spoil. You first who ran the blow, sitting on your throne. Now we turning every base into a bed of stone. It's a slaughterhouse, a trap you couldn't see. Welcome to the graveyard of your vanity. The secrets are leaking. The pressure is rising. We locked on the target. And now you are hiding. LOSCR. Yeah, we spelling at your name. Send them to the slaughter, you the only one to blame. Bleeding for a fucker while you shaking in your sweet. LOSCR. Taste the ash of defeat. LOSCR. Yeah, we spelling at your name. Send them to the slaughter, you the only one to blame. Bleeding for a fucker while you shaking in your sweet. LOSCR. Take the ash of defeat. Swag's fighting in your suit, hiding Epstein's ghost. You sent your boys to die on the bloody coast. Not a revenge for the leader's blood is purely mine. Every drop of his blood is a missile on the line. You thought you took him out, thought the fire was dead, but another common name is standing ahead. Yeah, you strike one down, we just shatter your brain. We put another in the leg. Khamenei again. The secrets are leaking. The pressure is rising. We locked on the target. And now you are high, yeah. LOSCR. Yeah, we spelling out your name. Sell them to the slaughter, you the only one to blame. Bleeding for a puppet while you shaking in your sweet. LOSCR. Taste the ash. LOSCR. Yeah, we spelling out your name. Send them to the slaughter, you the only one to blame. Bleeding for a puppet while you shaking in your sweet. LOSCR. Taste the ash of defeat. Sacred defense of the homeland. Sacred defense of the homeland. Sacred defense of the homeland. The slaughterhouse is open. Khamenei cash. LOSCR.
I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. How did you reach that conclusion?
I think this is key. I mean, this would be more challenging to explain had the Secretary of State, the President, and the Speaker of the House not come out and said that we conducted this attack at this time because the Israelis were about to do so. So that takes away the argument that there was an imminent threat, as in Iran was planning to attack us immediately. That just simply did not exist.
Let's also be clear. I've said before, I've said now, there was no imminent threat to the United States of America by the Iranians. There was a threat to Israel. We equate a threat to Israel as the equivalent of an imminent threat to the United States, then we are in uncharted territory. We have seen the goals for this operation change now, I believe, 4 or 5 times.
We didn't need to be in this war. You know, this is uncalled for. And this is what we get.
The family of Tyler Simmons tells me the news still feels unreal. They're filled with immense sadness and grief that their beloved pilot is gone, but also anger, feeling that his death could have been prevented.
It's just not fair. It's not fair at all.
But alongside their grief, Simmons' family is making a plea, calling on the United States to stop the war with Iran.
This could have been prevented. We didn't need to be in this war. You know, this is uncalled for. And this is what we get.
Families are suffering right now. Not only our family, but there are other families that's lost loved ones. And just to create a war because you want to create a war, it's not right. It is not right.
The crash brought the total number of U.S. service members killed since the conflict began to 13. Local for you, I'm Lexi Lepoff, NBC4.
We have a drastically different strategic goal than the Israelis do. So we will say that Israel is our ally in this. They're basically our co-equal in this. People like me will say, actually, we're not really even co-equals. They're leading because we're having to react to them. But either way, we're basically joined at the hip with the Israelis. Now, the problem is they have a much different strategic goal and a much, I'd say, higher threshold and tolerance for chaos and bloodshed than we do. Now, we have stated that our strategic goal, you'll hear Secretary Hegseth rattle these off at his morning briefings that he gives to the media. It's to destroy the Iranian Navy, to destroy the IRGC, to destroy their ballistic missile capability, to destroy all their enrichment. So we kind of have a checklist of like things that we want to bomb, essentially, to take off the battlefield. That's about as far as we've gone with stating what our strategic goal is, which I think is a big problem that we have with the GWOT, is we never really said what our strategic goal was. Obviously, there was get bin Laden and make sure the homeland isn't attacked. But I just remember being in Iraq, being like, well, what's the goal here? Like, we're building a government. So same thing. We didn't really learn that lesson. We haven't stated our strategic goal. The Israelis, as critical as I am of our relationship with the Israelis have a very clear strategic goal. And that is to take out this regime lock, stock, and barrel. That's to get rid of the Ayatollahs, the clerical class that rules over, and then also the IRGC, which is a huge lift. It's a big country. Those institutions are massive. They've got a lot of support, but that's the Israelis' goal. Now, the Israelis don't really care necessarily if that happens and Iran then slips into chaos and the Straits of Hormuz remains inflamed and there's a migration crisis and there's an ongoing war. The Israelis don't care about that. They care that the IRGC and the Ayatollahs can no longer fund their proxies or cause them problems inside of Israel. So again, you've got us footing the bill, doing the majority of the combat, doing the dying, doing the fighting. We have a very, very murky strategic objective, whereas the Israelis are driving this. They're driving essentially our commitment of combat power. They're driving us having people lose their lives. They have a very clear strategic objective. And this is why I say the number one thing we have to do in order to get out of this is to restrain the Israelis and get our relationship with Israel straight. Otherwise, it's all going to be for naught, and we're going to continue to get sucked in further and further.
I mean, if we're attached hip to hip with them, I mean, it's got to be the same goal, right?
You would think, but it's not.
Is it just not articulated, or is it really not?
I feel like it's truly not, and the Israelis don't have a hard time articulating what their goal is.
Oh, I mean us articulating.
Yeah, so we just list off the tactical punch list of things we want to bomb to take out so that the Iranians don't have any more. And to me, that's not a real strategic goal.
You know, I want to bring out this up. You had a really good article in the Washington Post. I think it released today. But you were talking about some strategy here, and that made me think the potential deployment of U.S. ground troops makes me very nervous.
Yeah.
Citing recent reporting that the president is considering seizing Karg Island, Iran's main hub for oil exports. This is you quoted. I just think that would be a disaster, Kent said, of deploying U.S. troops there. It would essentially be giving Iran a bunch of hostages on an island that they could barrage with drones and missiles. Are you the only fucking person up there that's thinking straight? Because that's exactly what would happen. 100%. You're putting U.S. service members in a fishbowl for Iran to kill because they're stranded on a fucking island.
Yeah, I mean
this is our strategy.
Yeah,
who came up with this fucking strategy?
It sounds like
Trump.
It sounds like Lindsey Graham. I mean, Lindsey Graham was on the Sunday shows yesterday talking about how great it would be. It would be just like Iwo Jima. I mean, just insanity. And I mean, I don't think the people who are pragmatic and are expressing their concerns, I don't believe they're being listened to. Now, obviously, the administration will push back and say, no, we're doing robust planning and we're hearing all voices, et cetera. But when I see ideas like that floated, and there's much worse ones out there as well, basically most of the formulas for putting boots in the ground inside of Iran are problematic, I guess is too late of a way to put it. They're bad plans.
They've already stated they want us to do it. They're ready for it.
100%. I mean, that would be handing Iran basically a strategic victory. Because once they get our troops on the ground there, they're going to be able to kill some of them. We're going to take losses. And then we fall back into that cycle. Once we take losses somewhere, we say, oh, no, now we can't leave. We have to stay to avenge our fallen. It can't be all for nothing. We have to stay. We have to keep fighting. We saw this over and over again in the GWOT. Every single time we talked about any kind of withdrawal in Iraq or Afghanistan, it was the same argument. We've lost too much here. There's still more that we could do. So, I mean, in terms of the Karg Island, that makes me nervous because I have heard so many people like Lindsey Graham and others that are not military people, that are not in the Pentagon, that are not reading intelligence every day, talk about it very flippantly. Like, oh, we'll just take that island. We'll just take their oil. I don't want to tell you guys, like, it's not 2003 anymore. You can't just put guys there and they'll occupy it. Like, there's ballistics, there's drones. They would be sitting ducks in that area. And as a matter of fact, like you said, the Iranians would probably be like, please take the island. We'll roll out the red carpet for you guys.
I mean, do I need to read your bio again? Why is he taking advice from Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz and whoever else that's just career bureaucrats?
This is the problem.
And then you got a guy like you in there with tons of experience in war, in intelligence.
Yeah. And there's others too. There's plenty of us in there that can give him much better advice. I just hope the president reflects, and I know he's mad at me. I hope he reflects and I hope he looks at the advisors he has around him currently that got him to the state that we're in right now, because we're not in a good state. He knows that, and he needs to start listening to people that are going to give him better advice that can give us a clear pathway out of this.
Who are some people that would give him better advice other than yourself?
Vice President DNI Gabbard and their teams, I think, are absolutely key.
The Vice President and the DNI.
And the DNI, yeah. Yep. And there's good people at the Pentagon that can give you options.
So he's not taking advice from his own Vice President?
I don't know. I wasn't at the Vice President's level. I think they have a good relationship. I just, based on what I've seen and based on what we've seen in the public sphere, he has been taking more advice, obviously, from Lindsey Graham, from Ted Cruz, from Mark Levin on TV, than he has been from people who may say, "Hey,
Mark
sir."
Levin on TV. That's who he's getting advice from. Fucking.
In terms
Mark
of how
Levin.
easy and great of an idea this will be. I mean, so the media ecosystem, they're not giving him tactical military advice, but they were, I believe, in my opinion, a big part of echoing the Israeli talking points about no enrichment. You have to strike now. If you strike now, you'll be a hero. There was also this false narrative basically that said, like, hey, because the people were on the streets in January, if you take a couple strikes right now and you really hammer them, the rest is going to be easy. It's going to be a cakewalk. The people are going to rise up. They're going to overthrow the regime. They're going to love you. They're going to cut a deal. It's going to be quick and easy like Venezuela was. I think Venezuela did a lot to give us some false confidence in how quick and easy a regime change, regime modification, whatever you want to call it, can be. So people like Levin, people on Fox, New York Post, New York Times, et cetera, a lot of those talking heads, coincidentally, not so coincidentally, a lot of them were the same people who talked us into the Iraq War, convinced him how quick and easy this would be. But I mean, to your point, I think if he took some more advice from Vice President, from DNI Gabbard and their teams, I think we'd be in a much better spot, and I think we'd be able to carve our way out of this mess.
Man, wow. How many troops do we have over there right now waiting? Is it 2,500 Marines on you?
I don't know. I mean, I see what you see on the news. I'm disconnected from all that.
How many has Israel sent?
Far less than us. Most of their military operations are taking place in Lebanon. They're doing a lot of air support and power projection via air, which is heavily funded by us.
Are they talking about sending ground force?
If they could, it'd be tiny. They just don't have. I mean,
so we'll do it.
So we would have to do it. Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
I mean,
so
we'll
do it for them.
They could do a commando raid or something, that'd be about it. But in terms of any kind of meaningful hold ground, even for a limited amount of time, that would have to be American boots.
Oh, okay. That's kind of what I thought. But, I'm getting angry, Joe.
I can tell. I hear you, man.
Really
I hear you.
Fucking angry. But, oh, man. It just... No new wars. No new wars. It just echoes in my head all day long.
Yeah.
And here we are. Right back in war.
Completely avoidable. And I pray, again, he listens to some of the voices that can get him out of this. I think there's still time, but this is very bad, and this could get worse. And I think platforms like yours are important because people like you, big podcasts, I think you guys brought a lot of people out to vote for President Trump. And I think it's really important that all the people that are watching this show and all the other podcasts call their senators, call their representatives, make their voice heard, because there is, again, that media ecosystem that kind of exists oddly in the White House. We've got to penetrate through that. They were listening during the campaign, and I think they'll listen again if people take this as a call to action.
No matter where you're watching the Sean Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this at all, anything, please like, comment, and subscribe. And most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, head to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and leave us a review.
So what matters here is that she says there that Iran was, quote, trying to recover from the damage inflicted on its nuclear program by U.S. and Israeli airstrikes in 2025. However, in her prepared remarks, she wrote this, quote, as a result of Operation Midnight Hammer, Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated. There has been no effort since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability, end quote. Now, she ended up not saying that. And maybe it's because it would have contradicted what Donald Trump has been saying. Here's Donald Trump's current position as uttered last week.
They would have had a nuclear weapon within 2 weeks to 4 weeks, and they would have used it long before this press conference.
What? Iran was 2 to 4 weeks away from a nuclear weapon? That yawning gap between what Tulsi Gabbard wrote and submitted in her prepared remarks and what she ended up saying today did not go unnoticed by the Democrats on the committee. Here's Senator Mark Warner.
You omitted that paragraph from your oral opening. Was that because the president said there was an imminent threat 2 weeks?
No, sir. I recognize that the time was running long, and I skipped through some of the portions.
So you chose to take
my oral delivered remarks.
You chose to omit the parts that contradict the president.
So imminence means that it's in the near term, it's on the horizon, it's coming, sooner rather than later. But there's no intelligence that I've seen coming out in any type of reporting that suggests that either from a ballistic missile standpoint or from a nuclear standpoint or even from a terrorist standpoint, that there was anything imminent that the United States really needed to go forward with this invasion of Iranian airspace and the bombing campaign. And so therefore, I think the lies are coming fast and furiously as a way to justify the rationale for the war. And there really is no rationale for it.
Let's also be clear. I've said before, I've said now, there was no imminent threat to the United States of America by the Iranians. There was a threat to Israel. We equate a threat to Israel as the equivalent of an imminent threat to the United States, then we are in uncharted territory. We have seen the goals for this operation change now, I believe, 4 or 5 times.
We didn't need to be in this war. This is uncalled for. And this is what we get.
The family of Tyler Simmons tells me the news still feels unreal. They're filled with immense sadness and grief that their beloved pilot is gone, but also anger, feeling that his death could have been prevented.
It's just not fair. It's not fair at all.
But alongside their grief, Simmons' family is making a plea, calling on the United States to stop the war with Iran.
This could have been prevented. We didn't need to be in this war.
I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. How did you reach that conclusion?
I think this is key. I mean, this would be more challenging to explain had the Secretary of State, the President, and the Speaker of the House not come out and said that we conducted this attack at this time because the Israelis were about to do so. So that takes away the argument that there was an imminent threat, as in Iran was planning to attack us immediately. That just simply did not exist.
Let's also be clear. I've said before, I've said now, there was no imminent threat to the United States of America by the Iranians. There was a threat to Israel. We equate a threat to Israel as the equivalent of an imminent threat to the United States, then we are in uncharted territory. We have seen the goals for this operation change now, I believe, 4 or 5 times.
We didn't need to be in this war. This is uncalled for. And this is what we get.
The family of Tyler Simmons tells me the news still feels unreal. They're filled with immense sadness and grief that their beloved pilot is gone, but also anger, feeling that his death could have been prevented.
It's just not fair. It's not fair at all.
But alongside their grief, Simmons' family is making a plea, calling on the United States to stop the war with Iran.
This could have been prevented. We didn't need to be in this war. This is uncalled for. And this is what we get.
Families are suffering right now. Not only our family, but there are other families that's lost loved ones. And just to create a war because you want to create a war, it's not right. It is not right.
The crash brought the total number of U.S. service members killed since the conflict began to 13. Local for you, I'm Lexi Lepoff, NBC4.
Иран выполнял все взятые на себя обязательства по известному соглашению, о котором мы сейчас упомянули. Все. К Ирану невозможно предъявить никаких претензий. Затем Соединенные Штаты в одностороннем порядке решили выйти из этого соглашения, а европейцы продолжили требовать от Ирана, чтобы он выполнял взятые на себя обязательства. Ну это, вы уж меня простите, но это бред. Иран же вышел из этого соглашения. США вышли. Бывший президент Трамп принял решение выйти из соглашения. А европейцы говорят, да, это не очень хорошо, что американцы вышли. Но вы, иранцы, все соблюдаете. Какого хрена, да, иранцы? Это попадает в защиту
I mean, I feel like I'm talking ass backwards right here, because of course I am, but this is the world we're living in, where the United States can pay a nation billions of dollars, nation of 9 million people, and then say, hey, we're ramping down strikes on energy infrastructure because we're trying to make peace. And that same government that represents 9 million people getting paid by us can say, fuck you, bomb them. And bomb the exact shit that he said not to bomb. Why is that? I really, really wonder why. Why is that? And I'll tell you who got vindicated immediately on this is Joe Kent. In fact, Joe Kent was doing like a fucking Chris Collinsworth play-by-play on Twitter of this as it was going out. Can we pull up Joe Kent's Twitter real fast? I want to get it right. Because he subtweeted right as this was all happening when the Israeli Air Force started striking the infrastructure. And again, he was being so classy and analytical about it. You know, it wasn't too much. Go down past the
March 23rd. Yeah.
Yep. All right, so there's a little more. All right, right here. So if you scroll down, Deef, I want to show people what he subtweeted over that. So he was subtweeting from OSINT Defender, where it says the Israeli Air Force has begun a new wave of strikes targeting infrastructure sites across the Iranian capital of Tehran. So Joe Kent posts on top of that Donald Trump's statement that I just read to you. This is during Monday morning while this is all going down. And he writes, step one in de-escalation must be restraining the Israelis. Otherwise, all efforts to negotiate will follow this pattern. 1. POTUS publicly announces de-escalation. 2, Israel takes major strikes to destroy the negotiations and in turn weaken our ability to negotiate. 3, the war accelerates, which is what they want. You then had the next day reports coming out that Netanyahu, and this is a real term, was, quote, very concerned that the United States was going to make peace with Iran. He doesn't want peace. So he wanted doomsday. That was a quote used in the report. I don't know if he directly said that, but that is a quote that was used. Doomsday bombing done to Iran over the next couple of days. Again, I say to you, who works for who here? Right? So Joe Kent had been saying last week, the Israelis give selective intelligence to us that is biased towards what they want and is not necessarily true. And it's been proven over and over again when they give it to us, it's not true. It's something that's, oh, right. To quote that AI movie that they were putting out the other day, Iran what did they say? It was like, you mean Iran's 2 weeks away from a nuclear weapon? And they're like, they're more 2 weeks away than they were 2 weeks away 5 years ago. Oh, shit. That's what it is over and over. You can run the timeline. They don't even invent new lines. They just say what this is. And again, I don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I think that would be awful, to be clear. But like, you have to know what you're dealing with here. You have to know what the actual limits of a psychotic regime are, because you then have to see, as I've said last week, the 3rd, 4th, 10th, and 100th order effects of what a fucking war scenario would do, which we are now seeing play out, and we are now hearing behind the scenes that Trump is so shocked that this wasn't so quick and easy like Venezuela.
You were waiting for the U.S. military to invade, the ground troops?
Yes, because we are confident that we can confront them, and that would be a big disaster for them.
So you're saying that Iran is ready and willing to take on the U.S. military if there were to be ground troops?
Well, we were ready for this war even more than the previous war. So you can see, the quality of our missiles, how much they are upgraded after the last war, because we learned lots of lessons. And we are prepared for any other eventuality, even, a ground invasion. So our soldiers are prepared for any scenario.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. قدرت راهبردی که از آن دم میزدید تبدیل به شکست راهبردی شده. مدعی ابرقدرتی دنیا اگر میتوانست از این مخمصه رها شود تا حالا شده بود. اسم شکستتان را توافق نگذارید. دوران وعده هایتان به سر رسیده. امروز در جهان دو جبهه وجود دارد، حق و باطل، و هر حق طلب آزاده‌ای تحت تأثیر امواج رسانه‌ای شما اغوا نمی شود. سطح خود درگیری هایتان به مرحله مذاکره خودتان با خودتان رسیده؟ نه خبری از سرمایه گذاری هایتان در منطقه خواهد بود و نه قیمت سابق انرژی و نفت را خواهید دید، تا وقتی که بفهمید ثبات در منطقه توسط دست قدرتمند نیروهای مسلح ما تضمین می شود. ثبات از طریق قدرت. صراحتاً اعلام می کنیم تا موعدی که اراده ما نباشد هیچ وضعیتی به روال سابق بر نمی گردد. این اراده زمانی ایجاد می شود که به طور کامل فکر اقدام علیه ملت ایران از اذهان کثیف شما پاک شود. حرف اول و آخر ما از همان روز نخست این بوده، هست و خواهد بود. کسی همچون ما با کسی مثل شما کنار نخواهد آمد، نه حالا و نه هیچ وقت دیگری. و من نصر الا من عند الله العزیز الحکیم.
Все время мы слышим, все время звучит: вы должны, вы обязаны, мы вас серьезно предупреждаем. Вы кто такие вообще?
will still generate billions in profits. And that's just how the military-industrial complex works. That's problem number one.
Yeah.
Problem number two is that, unfortunately, America is controlled by the baby boomer generation. And the baby boomer generation are used to the unipolar world. They think that it is their birthright to have the unipolar world. And so they cannot possibly accept America in decline. And so if you just look at polling, most Americans are against this war, but baby boomers are actually more supportive of this war than other generations. And I think that's because the baby boomers can't really face any consequences. If America loses this war, not a big deal. If America wins this war, then they can still vacation in the Mediterranean and feel good about themselves. Okay, so the baby boomers are a huge problem. And honestly, they're not dying. They'll probably live to 100 on average. And the third issue is just the mentality of America's foreign policy elite, where both Democrats and Republicans believe that America has the right to empire. America makes the world a better place. If America were to lose the empire, then the world would go into the garbage can. And so they are determined to maintain hegemony. And this is a consensus among all Washington elite.
Why are we fighting the world? Now, President Trump is in this because of a host of reasons. And you saw him today. He's going to find a way out. But the way out, as we just heard from Eric, even the easiest way out is incredibly bloody, right? We got to bomb the hell out of them. Okay? Hopefully that works. But right now, I will tell you the logistics chain to actually have combat troops, and they were very specific. I don't think Pete Hegseth mentioned it one time, right? Which I thought was very, very important. But the Arab nations, I'm tired of President Trump having to ask the Europeans and the Saudis and the Arabs step up and do more. At the same time, tell Netanyahu, let's do less. That's humor. Okay, we have a group of all-stars here. How many of you are Texans? Did you guys all vote for the Prop 10?
sanctions against Iran. In a televised address, Netanyahu said he's working to make Israel a, quote, supernation.
We are also forming new alliances with important countries in the region against the shared Iranian threats. I hope that soon I will be able to tell you more about these important alliances. We have also undermined the foundations of the terrorist regime, which before the operations appeared all-powerful.
Saudi Arabia has captured 2 Mossad agents. Qatar has captured 2 Mossad agents, and now they are in custody. Okay, and they are planning bombing here. The killing of and the assassination of
here.
Mossad.
Where is here? Remind me. Here.
Iran's new hardline leader, Saeed Jalili. We will not retreat from the nuclear program, and we will soon possess a nuclear bomb. We are marching toward victory, even if it costs us 1 million martyrs. Fear grips Washington and Tel Aviv. The name behind the fear is Saeed Jalili, the man who has been closest to the late Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei for more than 40 years. He is known as the most hardline thinker in the regime. He does not believe in opening up to the West, and he does not see America through political eyes, but as an eternal enemy that must be eliminated by all necessary means. Therefore, the chance of Iran abandoning its nuclear project under his leadership is nothing but a fantasy. Yedid Aronoth does not stop at analysis. It sounds the alarm bell. The name now being discussed in Tehran is not just a replacement, but the title of a much harsher and tougher phase in which losses will be 10 times greater than in the past 2 weeks, and it may cause a disaster after which neither the region nor the world can recover. The man whom Israeli and American circles describe as one of the most hardline minds in the regime did not come from the margins, but from the heart of the decision-making system. For years, he has been the Supreme Leader's representative in the Supreme National Security Council and a direct partner in managing the state's most dangerous files, from the nuclear program to the open confrontation with the West. But what worries Tehran's opponents is not only his history, but his personality. Jalili is not a man of compromises, nor does he believe in half solutions. He is the model of an ideological politician who sees the conflict with the United States and Israel as an existential battle, not a round of negotiations. Therefore, his rise, if it happens, does not mean a mere change of faces, but a transition of the regime to a higher level of extremism and isolation. In his first meeting with the Revolutionary Guard commanders, according to what is circulating in Iranian circles, Jalili left no room for ambiguity. He stood before the leaders with a decisive voice and swore, "We will not retreat from the nuclear program, nor from the missile system, but we will soon possess the nuclear bomb, and we will triumph even if we offer 1 million martyrs for victory." Today, all of Europe is begging us to let their goods pass. They have realized that there is no life if we rise against them, and tomorrow they will know that we are capable, with God's help, of cutting off Gulf supplies forever so that they all return to the Middle Ages. Just continue, persist, inject terror into their hearts as God has promised, and be certain that His victory, glory be to Him, is near. These are not just words, but a doctrine that is translated into policies, a vision based on absolute steadfastness and open readiness to pay any price to impose a new deterrence equation. In Tel Aviv and Washington, Jalili is seen as the worst-case scenario, a man who does not view sanctions as a threat, nor pressure as a reason to retreat, but as fuel for further escalation. His presence at the top of decision-making effectively means the end of any hope for near-term settlements and the beginning of a phase whose title is Confrontation Until the End. For this reason, Jalili's rise is not only read inside Iran, but is read as a strategic transformation that could completely reshape the region's balances and push the conflict to a more dangerous point, where there is no room for the middle ground and no space for retreat.
Crisis began with an Israeli strike on Iranian naval positions in the Caspian Sea, a move that severely angered Russian President Vladimir Putin and prompted him to contact Donald Trump in the harshest and most aggressive language ever exchanged between the two leaders. According to Russian reports, Putin told Trump, "The Caspian Sea is a red line. Approaching it means you will burn." Trump replied quickly, "I was not aware of this move, Netanyahu is reckless and taking actions I do not approve of. However, Putin continued in an even sharper tone. Save that talk to the Gulf leaders and play your games with the small ones. Do not try to evade or maneuver with me. I am not naive enough to believe you. Netanyahu does nothing without prior coordination with you. Even the air he breathes is planned in the unified war room you run from the White House. He added threateningly, I am heading to the Caspian Sea with the strongest fleet, and if Netanyahu commits any provocative act against Moscow, I will not hesitate to sink the entire state of Israel within hours. And if you think you can protect him, let me be crystal clear. We are fully prepared for a major war alongside Iran, and China will not hesitate to join us. This is my final warning. We are already en route to Iran. This is your last chance to avoid the Great War. Not a single American soldier will return home, and Israel will cease to exist. Iran downs an F-35 and destroys Haifa's oil refinery, paralyzing Israel's largest power station. Mujtaba Khamenei says the next strike will mean the end of everything. Putin set sail with his fleet, declaring, "We will sink Israel and Trump's ships in response to the attack on the Caspian Sea." Iranian army declares all oil and gas refineries in Israel will be destroyed following the strike on Haifa refinery. We will never allow it to resume operations. Tensions in the Middle East have escalated to unprecedented levels in the past few hours. The crisis began with an Israeli strike on Iranian naval positions in the Caspian Sea, a move that severely angered Russian President Vladimir Putin and prompted him to contact Donald Trump in the harshest and most aggressive language ever exchanged between the two leaders. According to Russian reports, Putin told Trump, "The Caspian Sea is a red line. Approaching it means you will burn." Trump replied quickly, "I was not aware of this move. Netanyahu is reckless and taking actions I do not approve of." However, Putin continued in an even sharper tone. Save that talk to the Gulf leaders and play your games with the small ones. Do not try to evade or maneuver with me. I am not naive enough to believe you. Netanyahu does nothing without prior coordination with you. Even the air he breathes is planned in the unified war room you run from the White House. He added threateningly, "I am heading to the Caspian Sea with the strongest fleet, and if Netanyahu commits any provocative act against Moscow, I will not hesitate to sink the entire state of Israel within hours. And if you think you can protect him, let me be crystal clear. We are fully prepared for a major war alongside Iran, and China will not hesitate to join us. This is my final warning. We are already en route to Iran. This is your last chance to avoid the Great War. Not a single American soldier will return home, and Israel will cease to exist." Putin's fierce political response was matched by an even harsher reaction on the ground from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, which targeted and paralyzed Haifa's main power station, a facility Israel relies heavily on. In a major shock, Iran, for the first time, successfully downed the most advanced American fighter jet, the F-35, a development that sent shockwaves to the Pentagon and signals a dangerously significant shift in Iranian military capabilities, potentially marking the beginning of the end of American air supremacy worldwide. Following Tehran's harsh strike, Mujtaba Khamenei sent a direct message to Trump, stating, "Today we will plunge Israel into permanent darkness. No light shall enter after tonight. We confirm that the comprehensive operation we have delayed for 2 weeks in an effort to avoid a devastating all-out war will now be executed. Let us be clear, within a single minute we can wipe out every oil refinery in Israel and turn that land into a lifeless zone. And we still have many more surprises in store for Netanyahu. If you do not restrain your boy and stop his actions, we are fully capable of disciplining both him and you every single day with even harsher scenarios. Do not challenge a nation whose highest highest aspiration for its sons and daughters is martyrdom.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. پروردگارا قادر مطلق تویی، عزیز تویی. خدایا با توسل به آیه نورانیه و ما رمیت از رمیت ولکن الله رما و به نیابت از همه این مردم که در سرما و گرما در خیابان برای اقامه دین تو ایستادند، دشمنانت را به دست پرتوان این مردم ذلیل کن. لبیک یا حسین.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. قدرت راهبردی که از آن دم میزدید تبدیل به شکست راهبردی شده. مدعی ابرقدرتی دنیا اگر میتوانست از این مخمصه رها شود تا حالا شده بود. اسم شکستتان را توافق نگذارید. دوران وعده هایتان به سر رسیده. امروز در جهان دو جبهه وجود دارد، حق و باطل، و هر حق طلب آزاده‌ای تحت تأثیر امواج رسانه‌ای شما اغوا نمی شود؟ سطح خود درگیری هایتان به مرحله مذاکره خودتان با خودتان رسیده؟ نه خبری از سرمایه گذاری هایتان در منطقه خواهد بود و نه قیمت سابق انرژی و نفت را خواهید دید تا وقتی که بفهمید ثبات در منطقه توسط دست قدرتمند نیروهای مسلح ما تضمین می شود. ثبات از طریق قدرت. صراحتاً اعلام می کنیم تا موعدی که اراده ما نباشد هیچ وضعیتی به روال سابق بر نمی گردد. این اراده زمانی ایجاد می شود که به طور کامل فکر اقدام علیه ملت ایران از اذهان کثیف شما پاک شود. حرف اول و آخر ما از همان روز نخست این بوده، هست و خواهد بود. کسی همچون ما با کسی مثل شما کنار نخواهد آمد، نه حالا و نه هیچ وقت دیگری. و من نصر الا من عند الله العزیز الحکیم. غافلگیر کننده چندین مرکز تجمع تروریست های صهیونی آمریکایی در جزیره بوبیان را مورد تهاجم ترکیبی موشکی و پهپادی قرار داد. در این تهاجم با انواع پهپادهای انهدامی و موشک‌های بالستیک تعداد زیادی از تفنگداران تروریست آمریکایی کشته و مجروحین این تروریست‌ها به بیمارستان‌های صالح الصبا، محمد الاحمد و علی السالم منتقل شدند. تهاجم علیه سربازان تروریست آمریکایی در هر نقطه‌ای از این منطقه تا نابودی کامل آنها از سرزمین مسلمانان به فضل الهی با حملات کوبنده ادامه خواهد یافت.
On Iran is being played out across multiple fronts, including digitally. Legacy media outlets are currently filled with stories saying the operation is for the greater good and the rest will pass. But the American public appears to be increasingly questioning US involvement with the series of Iranian AI-generated videos going viral, calling out, quote, Western hypocrisy. Our correspondent Umaima Ichar takes us through the online battle zone.
In the U.S., its monstrous media machine is layered and relentless. A full-scale effort is taking place to convince Americans that this war makes sense. At the top sits Rupert Murdoch, whose media empire, from the Wall Street Journal to the New York Post and Fox News, targets different audiences with tailored narratives. For the well-educated elites, the tone is measured and almost cynical. The language is always restrained.
Iran's missile strike on the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia damaged an American E-3 Sentry, an airborne warning and control aircraft that is critical in managing battle space and tracking drones, missiles, and aircraft from hundreds of miles away.
Well, that framing of the incident did not go unanswered. In fact, it was mocked publicly and instantly by Tehran.
Sustained only minor damage.
For the less educated, Murdoch's messaging shifts dramatically and does not require any respect for the audience's intellect. Zero evidence, anonymous or unverified sources, bogus claims. Anything goes as long as the headline is catchy. The New York Post pushes stories that grab attention even if they drift far from the unfolding military situation. And so, instead of focusing on the situation as it is on the ground, they drift off almost into the realm of reality TV.
You kind of suggested that we'd knocked out Ayatollah Jr. Have we? And did the CIA tell you that Ayatollah Jr. is gay?
Well, they did say that, but I don't know if it was only them. I think a lot of people are saying that, which puts them off to a bad start in that particular country.
And on primetime, the message becomes unmistakably forceful. On Fox News, also owned by Murdoch, the argument is not just that the war is justified, but that escalation is necessary. Even the president is promoting these media outlets and their narrative.
But why would we need troops on the ground? Well, there's a lot of reasons, and we wouldn't need 300,000 of them. It's this uranium, too. We've got to get the uranium. If it cannot be destroyed, if it cannot be altered, we got to get it. For the reason I just said. You can make dirty bombs, and over time you can still make sophisticated missiles.
Iranian people are sick and tired of being associated with their government. They are waiting for America's orders.
So let's think about what has happened. Let's list it out. So we took out the Iranian regime leader, the Ayatollah Khomeini, and then 40 of the top leaders. We degraded their military. You can see we've been laying that out all day, all morning. We've because they've decided to attack their neighbors, and we've kind of unified them behind us. So that's kind of worked in our favor to some degree.
And if the consequences of the war start biting the American voter at the gas station, the message becomes even more repetitive, a simple phrase echoed again and again. Short-term pain for long-term gain. A familiar slogan repeated until it sticks.
This is a short-term disruption for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain be for long-term gain.
We're going to have some short-term pain with long-term gain.
Short-term pay for a long-term gain.
Short-term pain, yes, but we've got some long-term gain. Short-term spike for a long-term gain.
Some short-term pain for American consumers.
We may have to deal with that in the short term. Short-term and temporary.
Temporary short-term pain.
It's going to suck in the short term.
Some short-term pain.
Short-term pain. We have to focus on the short term.
Short-term.
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 Short-term and long-term.
Short-term.
Hopefully this is a short-term pain. Short-term is highly outweighed of the long-term benefits.
Some short-term pain for the long-term gain.
But while this vast multi-billion-dollar communication apparatus tries to reshape perceptions inside the United States, Iran is fighting a very different kind of information war. One that's faster, simpler, and arguably more effective. No long articles, no studio debates, just short, sharp AI-generated videos that are designed to provoke, mock, and spread.
We sacrificed 168 beautiful, innocent school kids, the best kids. Tremendous sacrifice. Nobody does sacrifice like we do. We did it for you, sir. Believe me, Val, it's huge.
More. I want more!
content is dominating people's social media timelines. It's easy to understand, easy to share, and hard to counter. And the numbers do suggest something is not working on the American side. Approval ratings for Donald Trump have dropped to around 36%. At the same time, a majority of Americans, nearly 60%, say U.S. military action in Iran has gone too far. And that raises a simple question. How does a massive, coordinated media ecosystem struggle to convince its own audience, while low-cost AI-generated clips from the other side reach the audience so much more effectively? It's almost like a sophisticated, massive aircraft carrier being threatened by a simple drone. In this new world, war is being shaped by those who are adaptable, not those with the most money.
USS Gerald R. Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier that has been at the forefront of American attacks on Iran, has pulled back to Croatia after a reported laundry fire. For more on how Washington's most powerful vessel was taken out of the fight, take a look at our website, rt.com.
Hello, this is America, where the media is incredibly divided. Not just traditional television, but a whole new wave of modern-day broadcasters. See, millions of Americans now get their news through alternative sources, podcasts, those kinds of things. But there is so much information, and also, quite frankly, a lot of disinformation too. So who is controlling it? What can we trust? What can we not trust? A lot to dig into. First, though, Anna Burns-Francis.
Thanks, Phil. America is at war. Not just a war of words, but also of missiles. So what is the American public to believe? In just a moment, we'll cross live to our chief US correspondent, Alan Fisher, at the White House. He'll have the latest on the administration's messaging of the conflict in Iran. It was Donald Trump's right-hand warman, Pete Hegseth, who was out fighting the media today. In a press conference with the president at his side, the Secretary of Defense was quick to pull the press corps into line.
The folks here in the room, these cameras, they have a choice. You're either informing the American people of the truth or you're not. Because I hear it from my people every day. Behind every headline you write, there's a helicopter crew in the air. And behind every news banner you write, there's a battalion on the move. And behind every fake news story, there's an F-35 pilot executing a dangerous mission. My message to the media is get it right.
But what is right? And what in the modern day media is real? We know how the president feels.
You're with who?
ABC News, sir.
Fake news. ABC fake news. One of the worst in the business.
Airports, Newsmax, sir. You've deployed ICE.
You're not doing a very good job.
You've deployed ICE agents.
You're not doing a good job. Did you hear me? Okay, go ahead.
What exactly do you want from these
I'm
swamps?
taking CNN over Newsmax. You believe it?
But all we have really over here is the fake news. Fake news. A few days ago, I called the fake news the enemy of the people, and they are. They are the enemy of the people.
Friend or foe, the places Americans go to for trusted news has shifted drastically in recent years. So I'll start off by saying thank you for being here. Traditionally, people across the country would tune in to the likes of NBC, CNN, ABC, CBS and Fox News. They'd be reading newspapers like the New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal and USA Today. But now there's a growing trend of alternative news sources. How do the new players, stack up against the traditional media juggernauts? Well, last year, for the first time ever, social media overtook television as the top news source for Americans. That's according to a major study which found 54% of people used social media as their source for news. Television was at 50%, while news podcasts outranked radio. A Gallup survey released late last year found Americans' trust in mass media has gone from around 70% in the late 1970s to just 28% last year. Now, the output may be different, but in the war with Iran, the source is quite often the same. It's the president. Let's go now to our chief US correspondent, Alan Fisher, who joins us from the White House. Alan, the president has a keen interest in how his comments are perceived in the media, and a particular interest when it comes to messaging about how he is handling a situation.
Well, Donald Trump has always been his own best spokesman in his own mind. He thinks he can do a better job than anyone. We saw him on Twitter during his first campaign. When he was banned from that, he set up Truth Social, which has become huge. Throughout his years in the Oval Office, he has dismissed and denigrated the media, saying that they were fake news, the enemy of the people, that they weren't doing the job that they were brought in to do. And he believes that he gets much better coverage from those who are friendly to him. And we've seen that reflected here at the White House with the people who have a hard pass, who are allowed in to the building. A lot of them are now right-wing media influencers rather than legitimate news organisations. Their job is to amplify Donald Trump's message. Their message is to carry out to Donald Trump's followers exactly what Donald Trump wants them to hear. There's very rarely critical questioning. They look for sources where they can get them. But people who are on the streets, at home, watching the media, they still have a thirst for real news. We see that in every single poll that is carried, and they tend to focus on organisations that they like and often amplify their message. Let me just give you one example today. On the metro here in Washington, D.C., as I was travelling in, someone was staring at me. As I got up to leave the train thinking, that was a bit weird, he actually said, "You guys at Al Jazeera, I watch you all the time now. I think the job you're doing and the new programme you have from Washington is great." Americans want absolutely impartial news. Looks like they'll turn anywhere to get it.
Not just anywhere, Alan. To Al Jazeera. Thank you so much, Alan Fisher, joining us from the White House. It's no secret the American news media is under pressure from the White House to put a positive spin on the war with Iran. Heidi Jo Castro takes a look at how they're handling it.
Yeah, please.
Labeled the enemy of the people by President Donald Trump in his years-long effort to vilify and defund the press, journalists are now being told they should become cheerleaders of the war against Iran.
We've won this. This war has been won. The only one that likes to keep it going is the fake news.
Trump says the American press is downplaying the war's successes, and he's accused the media, without evidence, of generating these fake AI images of a burning U.S. aircraft carrier, saying the outlets should be charged with treason. The images were widely spread on social media where many people get their news, while mainstream outlets actually debunked the AI videos. But that hasn't stopped Trump's Secretary of Defense, a former Fox News host, from his continued attacks on the press. He slammed coverage emphasizing the war's death toll and economic impact, calling it unpatriotic.
A dishonest and anti-Trump press will stop at nothing. We know this at this point. To downplay progress, amplify every cost, and call into question every step.
Going beyond just words, the Pentagon this week kicked journalists out of its main building where they had held offices for years, citing the need for greater security. The New York Times and other outlets called the move unconstitutional. Further adding to the pressure, the chair of the Federal Communications Commission, a Trump ally, says TV and radio stations could lose their broadcast licenses for disseminating so-called fake news. He did not name any outlets or stories. What's the resistance? The U.S. press has issued fiery statements defending its independence and protections under the First Amendment. But with more Trump-friendly billionaires buying up media companies and continued pressure for positive war headlines, some fear the eventual erosion of this guardrail of democracy.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Heidi Jo Castro, Al Jazeera, Washington.
With such a fraught relationship between the Trump administration and the mainstream media, many Americans are finding their news elsewhere. Let's head back to Phil in the newsroom.
So what do these two words, the media, mean here in the United States in 2026? Well, you've got your big legacy networks, although they are losing viewers fast. On top of that, you've got your big cable networks. They do tend to have loyal audiences, but increasingly many Americans, younger Americans, are getting their news online. Part changing habits, part polarization, but for them, the TV transmitter is off. The internet is on. So let's take a look at some of these sources, and we'll probably start with the biggest. This is the Joe Rogan Experience, often said to be the most popular podcast in the world. 6 consecutive years at the top of the Spotify chart, often pulls in 14 million viewers or listeners per episode. Generally supportive of President Trump, but not always, and not on Iran.
I mean, this is why a lot of people feel betrayed, right? He ran on no more wars and these stupid, senseless wars, and then we have one that we can't even really clearly define why we did it.
Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly are another two big names. They're both former Fox News hosts who now know that the mic equals big money. Between them, they've got the best part of 10 million YouTube followers. Again, they generally support Donald Trump, not always, but they do know their audience.
I mean, there really is a bloodlust by some here domestically who do have the ear of the president to take out this regime as though it's going to be as easy as the Maduro raid.
Candace Owens is another big name on the right. You've also got Dan Bongino, regularly pulls in around 1 million listeners per show. He did have a show, then he quit to become Donald Trump's FBI deputy director. Then he quit that to go back to the mic.
Nobody likes war. Sometimes, unfortunately, in a complicated world full of real evil, demons, and I'm telling you that, folks, evil is real. And in a world full of evil, sometimes good men have to step up.
Plus, let's not forget Steve Bannon, former Donald Trump advisor, helped him win in 2016, now has the Bannon's War Room podcast, although that was once called a top peddler of misleading information among political podcasts.
The center of gravity of this war shifted from Tehran as the center of this war. And of course, our military is doing a magnificent job of defanging, declawing this operation. It continues every night.
Pod Save America is a big left-leaning podcast. It is staffed by former Obama officials. Look at those numbers, 1.5 million listeners per episode. It targets a younger, more activist crowd, but they are definitely listening.
Like Iraq, this is a war of choice built off of a lie. Like, we'll get into the details in a minute, but there's no imminent nuclear threat. There is no imminent threat of Iran having a ballistic missile that could hit the United States.
The Majority Report has a massive reach too, as does the Young Turks podcast, which calls itself the world's most unapologetic, politically progressive podcast, with around 6.5 million YouTube followers.
I wrote over the weekend the same thing I just told you guys, which is, why doesn't Israel send the 5,000 ground troops? Why do Americans have to die instead? And he quote tweeted, deport.
You've got The Bulwark, which describes itself as defending America's liberal democracy. On top of that, you've got The Midas Touch, which describes itself as independent. But take a look at some of the thumbnails of its recent YouTube shows. And then there is one name that needs no introduction to either the left or the right.
This is Gavin Newsom.
California's outgoing governor, Gavin Newsom, who is not yet confirmed, but is widely expected to be one of those vying for the 2028 Democratic presidential nomination.
And is it safer now than ever because of Donald Trump?
I don't know. No, it's
restaurants are opening every quote unquote every day now.
So for the new media, the rules have changed. There is no filter. There is no editor. They now have a direct channel to the viewer, just how they like it.
So, with all that in mind, how much do Americans know about the war in Iran? And where are they getting their information from? We sent our correspondent to find out.
I'm Richard Gaisford here in Friendly, a small town in Maryland, to discover what people know about this war and where they're getting their information from.
Television. Yeah, television, the best source that we can get some news.
And do you trust what you're seeing and what you're hearing?
Well, not everything is trustworthy.
A lot of my news comes from social media, unfortunately, and my algorithm leans quite a bit left. So what I know about the war is mostly from left-leaning sources. I try to mitigate that.
So you're having to work quite hard to get a balance of views and news.
Oh, 100%.
I know that gas prices has increased.
And where are you getting the information from that helps you understand?
Same as what Reginald said, social media. As you scroll, you might not want to see it, but it appears. And then from the news.
And when you watch the news and you see these social media feeds, do you trust what you're reading and seeing?
With a grain of salt.
All I know is that we strike Iran's biggest leader. And to me, I think that was kind of like crazy. Growing up, you realize more that the internet sometimes not telling the truth. So sometimes I believe it, or if I don't believe it, I look up more research.
So as the war goes on, you're watching more news?
Yes, sir. I've been watching the news ever since that started.
Are you hearing much at all?
No, actually, no. We're not hearing much.
I don't want to say I don't care, but I just don't listen to the news at all. The only thing I listen to the news for is the weather.
All right, joining me to discuss this and more is Akbar Shahid Ahmed, senior diplomatic correspondent for the Huffington Post, and Carrie Sheffield, a Conservative commentator and director at Independent Women's Voice. Thank you both for coming in. Akbar, I'll start with you. Has this war been a campaign of misinformation?
There's been a pretty aggressive approach by the White House on the Pentagon during this.
Tonight, I'm here at the grocery store. I come to get some stuff. America's not going to be able to survive like this. How are we going to survive? I got stuff to make burger and fries, okay? I got enough meat to make 8 hamburgers, a pack of hamburger buns, a thing of charcoal, a bag of potatoes, and grease. Take a wild guess. $50 damn $50 to make homemade hamburgers and French fries? There's no way we're surviving. I make good money, and this is not sustainable. I can't spend $50, and I didn't even get nothing. This right here was on sale for $3.99, so the charcoal was only $3.99. The rest of the food, hamburger meat, buns, potatoes, and grease, $45. We are so screwed.
Staying with the war in Iran, a newly released video adds to the evidence that it was an American missile that likely struck an Iranian girls' school, killing 168 people, according to Iranian authorities. Talk us through the images.
That's right, Mark. A new missile video has put the spotlight on the United States regarding the recent bombing of a school in Iran. Footage has emerged appearing to show a US Tomahawk missile hitting an Iranian naval base near the primary school in the southern Iranian city of Minab, a strike that killed over 150 people, mostly girls aged between 7 to 12 years old. Now, the video was released by Iranian news agency Mehr News. It shows the missile, as I said, just moments before it struck an Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps base in Minab, which is located very close in the vicinity of the school. This is on the 28th of February, the first day of US-Israel strikes on Iran. So let's have a look at the video. I warn you that it moves very, very quickly, but we'll do our best to go through it. So we saw a missile landing. We can see the moment of impact and the black smoke coming up there. And then the camera does pan to the right and we see more smoke, which we will talk about a bit later. Now, this video was geolocated by the fact-checking investigative collective Bellingcat. They matched the buildings, roads, trees and markers with satellite imagery to that site in Minab. And they determined that the missile did very much strike the IRGC compound. And as pointed out by Bellingcat, if we go through frame by frame of our video, we do see the Tomahawk missile very briefly in the first few seconds of the frame. We then see the moment of impact and the smoke that appears from there. And then as the camera moves to the right, so this is the compound being struck, and as the camera pans to the right, we can see there is already much smoke already fuming in the directions of the girls' school. And that has raised questions, according to Bellingcat's analysis, about whether the school had already been struck. Now, combining this new video with existing satellite imagery analysis and verified images of the aftermath of that strike, this new footage indicates that the girls' school was hit during the strikes as the US targeted that IRGC compound. Now, as I said earlier, munitions experts and analysts say that the missile in the video is very much a US Tomahawk, which only the US military is known to possess in its arsenal. Neither Israel nor Iran, Mark, is known to have that in its possession.
Vedika, this video of the US missile directly contradicts statements by President Donald Trump about the school bombing.
That's right. It is a direct contradiction to what Trump and his administration have been saying. Trump has declared that it is, in fact, Iran that is responsible for this Iranian school bombing, an accusation that Tehran has denounced. It has to be said that Donald Trump provided no evidence for this claim, although he did say that, in his opinion, Iran munitions were very inaccurate. I quote. Now, just this week on Monday, he was asked again in a press conference by a reporter. So let's take a listen now to the US president himself about what he thinks about the Tomahawk situation.
You just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a Tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this. Even your defense secretary wouldn't say that when he was asked, standing over your shoulder on your plane on Saturday. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it. I think it's something that I was told is under investigation. But Tomahawks are used by others, as you know. Numerous other nations have Tomahawks. They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report.
Now, in this same press conference, Donald Trump also said that Iran, in fact, had Tomahawks in its possession, something that arms experts have rejected. Now, I want to go back to the bombing of the girls' school. The United Nations has condemned this as a grave violation of humanitarian law. And just this week, Human Rights Watch has declared that and called for it to, in fact, be investigated as a war crime. So whether, how this develops remains to be seen. But as we saw there, this new footage has definitely put the spotlight on the US when it comes to that strike on the school.
Vertigo Bell, thank you very much.
Years in that, and we saw how many American lives did with that.
So would you just ignore it? Would you allow the killing of 30,000 people to continue?
Absolutely.
Would you allow the attacks on our military bases to continue? 600 U.S. service men and women have died.
I don't
at the
think
hand
that
of
people.
Hezbollah.
No
I
one
don't think
cares
that
about
people
that.
realize that they were
No
about
one cares
to
about
acquire a nuclear
Well,
weapon.
you'd care if
and
it was
have
one of your
ballistic
relatives.
missiles.
Well, but
if it was one of your if it was your family service member that died at the hand of the Iranian regime, you would care. I care, and I've never met anyone.
Enough Americans have died at the hands of our government and our governments over the past 10 years, particularly since the lockdowns of COVID in 2020, at the hands of government intervention.
Let's don't confuse the issue. I mean, we can talk about Democrats imprisoning legions of people for marijuana possession.
How do you explain Donald Trump made it the
Hold on one second, John. Shannon, go for it.
Yeah.
Make your quick point.
Well, I would say two things to John. The list that he rattled off, I mean, that list was evident and available for the, years that Donald Trump campaigned on ending endless wars. Donald Trump was very clear that he was not going to start new wars. He was going to end the wars that had been previously started. So this is a complete and utter blatant betrayal of his constituency base. Nothing has changed. They have not made any case to prove that there is enrichment of uranium happening. They have openly acknowledged, actually, that the U.S. has destroyed all of their ability to enrich uranium. That was announced just a couple months ago. There's no evidence of any nuclear proliferation, and there's no evidence that Iran posed a direct threat to the United States of America. In fact, the Trump administration is saying that we're waging these wars for resources, for trade routes, to commit regime change. I mean, they're giving every excuse to go to war with Iran, except for Iran is actually posing a direct and imminent threat to the United States of America. And it's so bad that even Israel just came out yesterday and said they're not sending any troops. So we're going to send our troops ahead. This is a war to benefit the government of Israel. We started this war because, Trump said that there was an imminent, Israel was going to come in and attack, and we wanted to get there first, which is an insane reason. I mean, even the administration cannot get their story straight as to why we are sending now 57,000 troops, boots on the ground, into Iran. Their messaging is completely contradictory to the extent that they're gaslighting the Americans with the absurdity. It's utterly absurd.
And let me ask you this.
The second point, you mentioned your 401k, and you said, you're willing to lose 20% of your retirement to wage this war. You're willing to put, our children on the line. I have 3 children. I have 2 boys, okay? And I'm not willing to put my children on the line for this war, but you're willing to give up 20% of your retirement. Do you know how much the Trump administration and the Trump family has increased their net worth in just the past 12 months? Well, $4 billion.
I don't see the connection. We're talking about a war in Iran, not the Trump family wealth.
The sacrifice.
I mean, be real.
While he enriches his own cronies.
Okay,
okay.
So let's take that side. Let's take that. And I hear what you're saying, Shannon. I mean, real quick, I want to give you, John. Here's the thing. You mentioned.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere.
Yesterday, you told us that Israel was going to strike Iran, and that's why we needed to get involved. Today, the president said that Iran was going to get.
Yeah, you're
statement is false, so that's not what I was asked very specifically. Were you there yesterday?
Yes, I asked
Okay.
the question.
No, were you the one that, because somebody asked me a question yesterday, did we go in because of Israel? And I said, you were asking me that, that follow-up, and I said, no. I told you this had to happen anyway. The president made a decision, and the decision he made was that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ballistic missile program.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere.
Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ability to conduct these attacks. That decision had been made. The president systematically made a decision to systematically destroy this terroristic capability that they had, and we carried that out.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere.
I was very clear in that answer. This was a question of timing, of why this had to happen as a joint operation, not the question of the intent. Once the president made a decision that negotiations were not going to work, that they were playing us on the negotiations, and that this was a threat that was untenable, the decision was made to strike them. That's what I said yesterday, and you guys need to play it. And if you're going to play these statements, you need to play the whole statement, not clip it to reach a narrative that you want to do, all right?
The key to playing poker is keeping a straight face and never letting your opponent know what you're thinking.
Israel controls you all.
По моему мнению, после убийства верховного лидера нет никаких сомнений, что Иран продолжит ядерные испытания в той или иной форме. И стало быть, рано или поздно получит ядерное оружие. После того, что случилось, теперь ядерный конфликт Израиля и Ирана в каком-то виде неизбежен. Как это не грустно и печально констатировать.
We don't take an oath to a tribe. We don't take an oath to a religion. We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator. We don't take an oath to an individual. We take an oath to the Constitution, and we take an oath to the idea that it's America, and we're willing to die to protect it. Every soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Guardian, and Coast Guardsman, each of us commits our very life to protect and defend that document, regardless of personal price.
احنا من 70 سنة ما شفناش هذا الشيء. من 70 سنة ما شفناش هذا الشيء. أخذوا الرزق وأخذوا كل شيء. ما خلوناش شيء. ما خلوناش شيء من مرة. خربوا بيتنا. ضربوا يحرقوا رجال. وزيادة عن ذلك المطور هنا سلكوه. المطور طرمبة الرش سلكوه. حبسونا من الساعة 12 بالليل تروحنا. الساعة 12 بالليل تعرفنا نطلع.
Here's the problem. The strait was open before the war began. We are now seeking to solve a problem that we created. This is insanity. $2 billion is a lot of money. That's the minimum amount of money that is being spent every single day on this war. There are over a dozen families who are burying their loved ones in the United States, and there may be dozens more if this war continues. Prices are skyrocketing, not just in America, but all across.
Also with lies, and I know where such lies lead. President Trump is a failed leader. He will go down in history as the worst president ever. The good thing is that he soon will be as irrelevant as an old tweet. But what are we to make of those elected officials who have enabled his lies and his treachery? I will remind them of what Teddy Roosevelt said. Patriotism means to stand by the country. It does not mean to stand by the president. Now, John F. Kennedy wrote a book called Profiles in Courage. A number of members of my own party, because of their own spinelessness, would never see their names in such a book, I guarantee you.